Hey there, you're probably here because you wanted to learn a little bit more about Freshline, and I'm here to explain it to you because what we do is unique. There's not very well, actually, there's no other organizations that I know of anyway that do what we do, and so it's really important that you understand what we're all about. Because if you want to get further involved with us, it's important to me that you know what that looks like, what that means, what you're actually committing to, because it's the furthest thing from just signing up for some kind of tour. That's not at all what we do, despite the fact there's a lot of misconception that's what this is. So let me give you a bit of an explainer as to what Freshline's all about. Let me start just with who I am and why I'm here. So my name is Eric Hatterscheit. I'm one of the co-founders here at Freshline. You can see the photo there. That's me. And then the other co-founder, Jordan Kemper, who is one of my best friends in the world. Actually, probably is my best friend in the world since the seventh grade. So we went through elementary school together, high school together. We grew up in a small town called Lumby, BC. Jordan was a farm kid, grew up on a farm just outside of town. And I grew up in a small wilderness resort that was about half an hour outside of town. And when we weren't being little child slaves for our parents who were working us both on the farm and the resort, every moment that we could get away, we were exploring the mountains. And when we were old enough to start riding bikes, we started exploring the mountains on motorbikes. And there's a lot more to the story, but that's our humble beginnings. That's where we started. And down the road, we got into forming this organization by accident, essentially. We simply wanted to explore the world. We wanted to do that with a few friends. Those friends initially were really excited, but then they all eventually had excuses why they couldn't travel with us. And so we started inviting strangers to ride bikes with us and explore the world. And then those strangers started telling other strangers, and that became the organization that's Freshline. Now, within that, what that means is we didn't set out to start this as any kind of business. We didn't have a strong business plan behind it. It was just something that grew initially organically. And then we also saw that the things that we were doing within Freshline were having a dramatic impact on the guys that were part of the club. So yeah, we went and we traveled, explored other countries. And then through that, as we went to more and more remote places, we saw the need for us to deliver humanitarian supplies. More on that later. But more importantly, this organization was a bunch of guys that were getting together and were spending time around the campfire at night, and then sharing pieces of their lives that were pretty deep and pretty meaningful. And by consequence, that meant that the other guys around the campfire also deeply cared about how those guys were doing, both during the expedition, but more importantly, post expedition. And so what evolved in the club was a situation where now we've got a whole community that meets on a weekly basis. We've got back end forums, we organize rides, we spend time together with guys from all over the world. And that really is the core of the club. So when it comes to Freshline's purpose, our purpose is actually not just to ride motorcycles, explore places, deliver supplies, although we do that, and that's important work, and it's awesome adventures. The core purpose of the club really is to be here as a foundation for men to support each other through life. And so you'll see that in our purpose: provide a vetted brotherhood for men to grow through challenge and exploration. A little bit more on the vetted part later. Freshline also has some pretty strong values that we live by. Everything we do here at Freshline gets run through the Freshline values. So you got them here on the screen. I'll read through them quick. If you want to pause here and go through them in more depth, you can, but just know and understand that everything we do in Freshline, whether that's on the back end or on expedition, gets run through these values. And that's own your shit. So just taking responsibility for everything. Serve the mission. That's putting your ego aside and putting the group needs above your own. Leave it better. Really important to us that we're leaving the places that we go better, but also let's not forget about the fact that we want to leave the members that we've got in the organization better as a result of the experiences that we're delivering. And then lastly, persist with purpose. So as part of our work, things can get hard. And so it's just saying, hey, don't give up, keep going. You might have to pivot. You might have to make a plan that you didn't think you had to make, but there's no whining, there's no giving up, keep going. So those are the values that we've got. All right, let's talk a little bit about expeditions, because that's probably why you're here. So what is a Freshline expedition? What makes that unique? Well, the first thing is that they are mission based. So all of our expeditions have some kind of humanitarian mission. that is the central element of that expedition. And so we're going to far-flung places to help communities that typically are not getting aid from other organizations, or if they do, it's very, very infrequently. That means that we're riding to places often where trucks don't go, but motorbikes can get in because they can be loaded in either by canoe, or they can get it through the walking trails, etc., to get into some of those locations. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely locations we get to that you can get to by road, but it's typically not the easiest places to get to, or they're just far from anything. And so these are some of the missions that we've run. We've run missions, all over the world. We've run missions in Guatemala, Peru. I believe this is in the Amazon. This is in Guatemala. Delivering water filters in Madagascar. Delivering rice and supplies in Peru, up one of the tributaries of the Amazon there. Delivering school supplies in Nepal, into the Mustang region of Nepal, the Kingdom of Lo, one of the last surviving kingdoms in Nepal, and going to a monastery that also had a school and orphanage up there, and delivering school supplies up there. This is by no means the only missions that we've run. We've run many, many missions over the years, on average one a month, to locations all over the world. But that just gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Also, in our expeditions, there's an element of exploration, because it's important to us is that we continue to go to new places. As we go to these places that have need, it means that we're going to places we've never been before. So what's important here is the leaders of these expeditions, they haven't been to these places either. We're going to all these places with fresh eyes for the first time. And so we're exploring these places together. And that means that we're going to run into a lot of things that are unexpected. And that'll be all over the world. This is in the Himalayas. This is in Africa. This is on the steppe, somewhere Mongolia or Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. This is, I believe, in Papua New Guinea, Peru. So we also visit a lot of ancient sites as well, cultural sites. And you can see here, even in this picture, no one around. There's lots of really, really cool ancient temples and sites that are virtually unexplored, or at least not visited by the typical tourist, because they're so far off the beaten track. And so we'll also make an effort to connect with culture and history that way as well, if that's possible, on those expeditions. Here's another example of that. This was in the country of Georgia, getting to some of the most remote castles and watchtowers and stuff out there, and just seeing some of the history and understanding, like even in this picture, the whole region there, they all were struck by the Black Plague. And while we were there, we went into some of the crypts there, and that's where we read that a bunch of the locals went down there to go walk down there and sit next to their relatives and passed away. Pretty heavy stuff, and you can just walk right in the crypts, and the skeletons are still sitting there. It's incredible, but really a cool connection to not just local history, but history that you've heard about, read about, and you really get a real feel for it, a sense for it when you're out there. This is in Papua New Guinea, connecting with some of the tribes out there. And that's part of this too, is it's really important with part of Freshline that as we go to these locations, we're actually spending time, we're sleeping at the villages, we're sleeping with the local population there for a number of days, just to make sure that we can connect with them, understand where they're coming from, understand what their needs are, and deliver as much as we can, and also learn as much as we can. This is in India, I believe. And then there's this element of brotherhood that's really, really important. And that is, that's because we go through a lot of challenging scenarios when we're running these expeditions. So in this case, this is, I believe, in Papua New Guinea, working through just the insane mud there. And it's important to mention this, because a lot of guys say, oh, I can do this on my own. I promise you, a lot of the places that we're going, you're not going there on your own. You're not getting through this stuff on your own. A lot of the areas and regions that we're going into, it requires a team to get you through. Part of that also is just a sheer number of breakdowns. Things happen with the bikes. Changing tires is a pretty common occurrence, but also there's a million other mechanical failures. Sometimes you have to leave a bike and double up. Sometimes you have to tow a bike if you can through an area. So again, typically not something, or not areas where you're wanting to go on your own. This is somewhere in the Gobi Desert, where you're relying on the guys next to you. These are areas where you're most likely you're not wanting to go and travel yourself because the risk level is just far too high to do this on your own. Even if you're doing this with a group of buddies, let's say you're going with a group of buddies and you're like, hey, let's just go do this thing. These are typically regions where I wouldn't recommend that this is your first foray into international travel. There's a lot that can go wrong on these expeditions. And so that's why we spend 14 months planning every single expedition to make sure that we've gone through all of the logistics. And then we also train you. A little bit more on that later. But we do spend a lot of time with each other on those expeditions. We spend a lot of time around the campfire. We spend a lot of time with locals. This is in a local hut in Papua New Guinea. Pouring rain outside, and they invited us in to this is the chief's brother's hut. And so that we were able to sit with them, make dinner. They'd smoke these little cigarettes that they roll using newspaper and like a small bit of tobacco. And this is the first time they've ever tried a cigar, and they loved it. They thought it was a great experience. And so just sharing some of that with the locals and with each other are great experiences for us in Freshline. Another huge component of expeditions, but Freshline in general, every time we get together in person, we have campfire chats. And so this one, obviously, it's a larger group here. This is from our annual muster, one of the campfires at the annual muster. Typically, our expedition teams are usually around 10 guys, but this is something that's a pretty common occurrence for us. It allows us to just really get to have deep conversations with each other while we're on expedition, just sitting around a campfire and not getting distracted by anything else. And then not to mention, obviously, there's a lot of challenge. There are really, really remote places that we go, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun along the way. So obviously we're taking some time to play on the bikes, play with locals, all of that stuff. A lot of the terrain we're riding through it's just straight fun. If you like riding anything that's close to enduro, whether that's adventure bike or dirt bikes, there's a lot of elements that we go through that are just fun riding, and fun times too. Just joking around, having fun with the guys. It's a good time. There's a lot of stories that formulate in Freshline, and there's a lot of relationships that are relationships that we intend to run until we're old. Until we're old, we can't ride anymore, and we're gonna have those relationships and those stories to tell with the guys. And those experiences to share with the guys that are our brothers here in Freshline. Sorry, the wind here just slammed that door shut. All right, so that's a little bit about expeditions. There's a lot more to the club on the back end, but until you are really in the club, not as important right now to you to go through all of that. So how do you get into a Freshline expedition? How do you get into Freshline in general? It's really important to us that you don't just come on expedition teams. And the reason for that is because we've done that. And there's always guys that overestimate their riding skill. There's also a lot of guys who have their ego get in the way of their ability to be a team member, a team player. And so what we have now in Freshline is we ask that guys come in and they do an expedition with us, but we call it a Crucible expedition. So those are expeditions where guys come in as prospects. At least that's what we're calling them now. And they will run an expedition with one of our qualified expedition leaders. And they're running a mini expedition. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter than our typical expeditions. And that gives the guys an opportunity in that Crucible expedition to know what it looks like to run a Freshline expedition, and also gives us on the Freshline side an understanding of where those guys are at. Are they ready for Freshline style expeditions? And then from your Crucible expedition, if you have good standing with your peers, you get rated by your peers in the Crucible expedition. You also get rated by your leader. And if you have a good rating for your leader, you might get invited into Freshline membership. And it's up to you at that point, whether you want to actually go further with it, whether you want to do bigger expeditions, and whether you want to actually be part of the club, part of the membership there. It's not a massive membership. We cap membership at Freshline at 300 total. And that is because we try and keep it small enough that you have an opportunity to get to know almost all the members in Freshline, and they're traveling with each other around the world at different points. And we definitely meet up at the international musters as well, and dozens of other invite events for members around the world. So why the Crucible expedition exists, I already kind of talked about that. Essentially, yeah, I don't need to repeat myself. It's testing just riding. Riding skill is a minor component of Freshline's expeditions. We need to know you can ride. Really good test for you to say, am I ready for a Crucible expedition from a riding standpoint? Have you ridden dirt bikes? If the answer is yes, you're probably okay. If you haven't, you definitely need some dirt riding experience to get in there. The biggest thing that we're looking for in those Crucible expeditions is your attitude, because that's the biggest thing that will kill an expedition team, is if you got a guy that's got a crappy attitude. So that's why they exist. So what can you expect on your Crucible expedition? Well, here's what you will have experienced by the time it's done. So first, you'll receive a mission briefing. Every Crucible expedition, same as a Freshline expedition, is going to have a mission tied to it. And you'll work with locals to, especially local organizations, typically humanitarian organizations, to figure out we'll organize this with you, with those organizations beforehand, but you'll go in and you'll get a briefing from those organizations in terms of what your mission is. Typically it's delivering medical supplies, water filters. Sometimes it's going in and helping build infrastructure buildings, but we'll brief you when you get there on site. From there, you're going to have to navigate remote terrain with a small team. So you're going to have a group of 10 guys with a Freshline expedition leader, typically 2 Freshline expedition leaders. And you're going to be packing your own bags. More on that later. Packing your own bags, your own supplies, all of that stuff. And then also the medical supplies or whatever supplies you're bringing in, tools, medical supplies, water filters, etc. And most of that's going on the bikes. Sometimes we bring support truck. That depends on the region that we're going into, but most of the time we're only on the bikes. From there, you have to understand that you're going to be supporting yourself with only the gear that's on your bike. So everything that you pack, everything you've got has to fit on your bike. Essentially, you're camping off your bike with room on your bike as well for supplies. And so that means that you're going to have your everything, your pots, your food, your tent, your sleeping pads, all of that stuff. We'll brief you on all of that beforehand. Some of those things we'll have for you, like the bags that go on the bikes, etc. And then the tents and stuff, you can choose to bring your own, or you can choose to rent from us. So that's up to you. You're going to be riding through failure and frustration. So in this case, things go wrong. Mechanical issues happen while you're trying to get there. Definitely weather conditions will come into effect. You might have bugs. You might have heat. You might have rain. You might have all kinds of things that'll come into play while you're out there. And it's not as simple as, I don't like this anymore, I'm just going to dip into the closest lodge or whatever, because most of the time that's not an option. So it's powering through and doing that with the guys that are around you in order to get the aid where it needs to go to fill that mission. And so that's part of it, delivering humanitarian aid to people who need it. Already talked about the most common scenarios in terms of what we're doing out there. And you'll get briefed on your mission more specifically with the specific mission that you're on once you get put into your Crucible expedition. The other thing you're going to get is you're going to get peer feedback at the end of your Crucible expedition. So there's going to be an opportunity for you to rate your peers and your peers to rate you. And then also you're going to have a one-on-one sit down with your instructor, your leader on that expedition. And they'll give you a rundown and evaluation of how they thought you performed. And sometimes if you perform well, then they will extend an invite into the club. So ultimately, this gives you an experience to just understand what it looks like to ride with Freshline, from an expedition standpoint, to get to know the way that we ride on expeditions. That's everything from how we communicate in those expedition teams, how we ride, what's our formation, how we deal with medical issues, how we deal with mechanical issues, how we navigate all of that stuff. You're going to learn all of the basics on that Freshline expedition. When you leave there, even if you're not invited into Freshline because you're not ready for it yet, you will have the skills to run an expedition pretty well anywhere else on Earth. Definitely at home, and feel a lot more confident in just how to tackle a lot of the challenges and issues that we see on these international moto expeditions. We're going to be teaching you how we go through all of that. So you'll have a much better understanding of what that looks like, whether you want to do that with us or whether you want to do that on your own. Either way, it's going to give you some really good experience. And what I can guarantee you is it will be something that it will change you. It will transform your perspective of the world. It'll transform your perspective of yourself. I don't think we've had a guy that's come through that hasn't had that happen. And so it's going to be an experience that will definitely mold your outlook of the world and yourself coming out of it. So who's this really for? It's for guys that are, let's talk about who this is not for first. So first thing is, this is definitely not for guys who are just interested in going out there and taking a selfie and they're in it for themselves. They just want to go post a picture on Instagram and say, look at me. This is for guys who genuinely want to go out there, want to help. This is for guys who are, they are fulfilled by purpose-driven leadership. This is for guys who are capable of taking time off. This is also for guys who are capable of self-funding. One thing about Freshline is, yeah, we do these missions, but there's no bigger organization that's paying us to go do this. We're self-funded. When we go out, we're all taking money of our own pockets to fund those expeditions. And so you have to be capable of doing that. Taking the time off to go and do that. That's at least 5 days, typically a little bit longer, because most of the places you have to fly to for travel time. So usually minimum of a week to run some of those expeditions. A lot of expeditions are 2 weeks once you get past that Crucible expedition stage, sometimes even longer. So making sure that that's something that's for you. As far as age goes, we've got guys that are anywhere from like early 20s up until their mid 70s. There's a lot of guys that we have in the club. I'd say actually the average age of our member probably sits closer to 50 in and around there. So just in case you're thinking, oh, am I too old for this? We got lots of guys that are definitely over 50 and up until, like I said, 70, almost 80 in some cases. And there's always an opportunity for you in Freshline. If you're here and you're servant-hearted and you're willing to help people, serve people, and then you just want to have a good, solid group of guys around you, then there's a place for you here at Freshline. You don't have to be the world's best rider. Most of the guys just grew up riding as a kid, riding on the farm. Even if that's not the case, if there's a lot of guys that are new to dirt, but at least they've ridden some dirt. I would say you probably have to have some dirt riding on your belt before this is going to work for you. But that's really it. And then after that, it's an attitude of saying, this is something I want to do. Because if you're watching this and you're getting excited, I can promise you, you're the 1%. Most people just skim over anything that we're doing, as far as skimming over the ads that we're running and that kind of thing. And then even once we get the applicants in the door, most of the time, we're taking like 1 out of 100 applicants, because a lot of guys are just, once they understand that this isn't just a tour, that's not really what they're looking for. So this really has to be for you. And if you're getting excited about this, it's probably for you. And then I'd keep watching. So if you are still here, you're still watching this, this video is a long video, then I would say fill out the application, and book your call with us. We'll do an assessment call with you, see if this is for you. If it is, awesome. We'll book you into that Crucible expedition. And if it's not, no problem, no worries. This is a good opportunity just to get to know us and get to know what that all looks like. Anyway, thanks for your time. Appreciate you making this far. And hopefully one day I'll see you in the club.